business of, well, what is it that just happened in the outside world that triggered this fixed action pattern to occur? What was the sensory trigger, their jargon? What was the releasing stimulus? And they had general strategies for doing this. Okay, you were speculating that this sight is the thing that triggers whatever this behavior in this animal. How do you begin to test it? Let's remove the, okay, enough with the abstract stuff. Baby birds, baby gulls or something, peck at mom's mouth, at her beak, and that is meant to get mom to regurgitate some exciting food. How do they know how to do this? What is it that gets them to do this behavior? On mom's beak is a little red circle, and the early ethologists noting that, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if they're looking at the little red circle there. I wonder if that's the thing that's causing them to start this behavior. What were the experimental techniques for saying, oh, is a red circle on mom's beak a releasing stimulus for this fixed action pattern of pecking? Let's do an experiment. And the standard experimental models they would have would be to subtract out the thing that you think is the stimulus. Take mom and white out her little red circle there and see if the kids no longer peck. Replacement, which is now you've done that to mom and you draw a little red circle back and you see if they start pecking again. Replacement, substitution. Now you take something completely different. You put like some, neon triangle on mom's beak, and you see if you elicit the same behavior. Oh, what's the specificity of it? Finally, the thing that they really specialized in, which is now you would do what they called super stimulation, which is you wave a piece of paper in front of the chick there that you've drawn a gigantic red circle on, and you see if it goes out of its mind and pecks at it like there's no tomorrow. Experimental approaches like this. If you take away this thing, does the fixed action pattern no longer occur? If you put it back, does it work again? If you replace it with something else, if you exaggerate the traits, do you get even more of the behavior? These were the standard approaches for figuring this out. And ethology types who are interested in this realm of releasing stimuli, the thing they have gotten incredible mileage out of recent years is making little robotic animals. Because you could program to do certain behaviors and you could see if you could elicit everybody else to respond to the behaviors. And of course, the first ones were all sorts of techie folks building robotic bees who could dance in certain dimensions, and they would stick them in there and wind up the gear shaft thing, and they would just dance away, and they could get the other bees to go flying off someplace. The bees not being very discriminating as to which dancers they pay attention to, but the point there was this was a substitution, a mechanical substitution for that releasing stimulus. Or there's some amazing paper a couple of years ago where somebody made a robotic cockroach and was able to trick all the other cockroaches into doing some sort of imprudent behavior. And so you see, this is high-tech versions of this approach. Ooh, it might be this stimulus, let's replicate it, let's make it even more exciting. So using this approach, the ethologist would begin to figure out what is it in the sensory world of this animal that caused that fixed action pattern to occur. And it was never more than in this domain that they were doing that whole soundbite about interviewing an animal in its own language, because what it's all about is recognizing other species out there are functioning in sensory modalities we can't even guess at. What they began to see. One example, the sorts of auditory stimuli that would trigger fixed action patterns. One example, deer, moose, big things, what are they called? Elk. Elk. Is elk a female name for bulls? Okay, so you get Bullwinkle's there, and what he's doing is he is trying to find a mate. And how does he do it? What they do in these northern Minnesotan beasts is they bellow. They give these bellowing calls that are heard for miles and miles. Male deer, I guess it's deer. Okay, they bellow, could be heard miles away, and if you are the right kind of female and you hear some guy bellowing in the next valley, do you know what you do? You ovulate. Auditory induced ovulation. And not only that, you begin to go try to find the guy, and when you get there, you start this whole courting display thing, if he's the right kind of guy, and he expresses himself. And what you have there is, what's the releasing stimulus? An auditory one. Even more bizarre, discovering that rats are responsive to certain types of stimuli. For example, you tickle them on their rib cage and they giggle. Yes, your tax dollars going on that could instead be like spent on nuking something or other. What you've got there is rats giggle. They giggle in an ultrasonic range, so you can't hear it until you've got some rat giggle decoder thing. And they giggle in response to logical things, like you tickle them and they giggle, and then they come back for more. And you show all those patterns with it. And if you get it at the right frequency only, and they do this giggling, chirpy thing, and you're releasing that there, and other rats come over to check it out. Because the sound, the auditory releasing stimulus, in this case of rat chirping, giggling, induces this, whoa, let's go see where the party is, response in the other rats. Another example of this interesting thing that you see in various species, including humans, which is when females are ovulating, their voices go a little higher. And studies showing that males subliminally can detect this. More evidence of modalities supplying information we would never even guess at. Okay, then you can show releasing stimuli in the visual domain. And one example of this is that you have turkeys, and turkeys apparently do their sexual attraction stuff visually, and this prompted one of the cruelest, most savage studies I've ever seen, which is trying to figure out what is it that makes female turkeys attractive to male turkeys. And what they did was they would show the male, and they studied his behavior for a long period, and the scientists began to guess at what were the releasing stimuli, the visual information from the female that would elicit this behavior. So they did the subtraction substitution technique. They made themselves an artificial female turkey. They took a big old ball of styrofoam and they stuck this fake turkey head on at one end, and they stuck a bunch of feathery things at the other end and just stuck it out there in the field. And of course the idiot male turkeys instantly are like all around the thing and courting it and all. Oh, so interesting visual stimuli. What about it actually attracts the male? And here's where the cruelty came in. They would begin to mess with the artificial females. And I once saw a film of this, and like the empathy you feel for this poor turkey guy there, because they have him, and he comes in there, and they've got the styrofoam female with the stuff there, and he's courting it and having a great time. And now they put him back there, and they do something or other there, and he comes out, and the back feathers are kind of perpendicular to the head. And that doesn't see, so you see he sort of stops there and kind of circles around for a bit, but being a male, he decides what the hell and starts courting the thing. Then they put him back in the room there, and now they let him out, and the tail and the head are on the same side. He stands there looking a little more confused before starting to court the thing. Put him away, come back in, and like the head is over there, and the feathers are there, and the styrofoam ball, and you see he's kind of like looking around and goes up to this, and no, that's not going to work, and goes over to the next one, and you're seeing what the information, can you believe how cruel this was? You could begin to see the sort of information, what were the building blocks of that visual releasing stimulus in order to find out about that.